My daughter blocked me when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I went through 10 months of chemotherapy alone, vomiting, losing my hair, crying on the hospital floor, completely alone. 6 months after remission, she showed up at my door, not to apologize, not to see if I was alive, but because she had heard about my $500,000 life insurance policy and wanted to talk about financial planning. I smiled and said, "Sure, honey. Everything you need to know is on that tablet." She opened it, excited. It was a video of her, recorded by my security cameras, stealing my jewelry while I was undergoing chemotherapy. But that was only the first file. What she saw in the second and third files made her run to the bathroom and vomit. And what did I do next? It will leave you speechless. But before I tell the whole story, subscribe to our channel right now. For you, it's just a click. But for us, this is the fuel we need to keep finding and sharing incredible stories like this one. Have you subscribed yet? Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let me tell you this story. She had her father's smile, the one that used to mean safety, Sunday morning pancakes, bedtime stories where the princess always saved herself. Now, standing in my doorway after 18 months of silence, Sophie's smile just meant danger dressed in nostalgia. Her hands clutched her purse like a lifeline, knuckles white against the leather. "Mom," she said, voice trembling with what someone who didn't know her might mistake for emotion. "I'm sorry. I heard about everything. The cancer, the treatment. Can we talk?" The September Boston air felt heavy between us, thick with things unsaid and things that could never be unsaid again. I stepped aside, let her into the Beacon Hill apartment she'd grown up in. She moved carefully, eyes scanning the space like she was cataloging what had changed, or what was missing. I'd been waiting for this moment for 12 months. 12 months of sitting in that leather chair by the window, watching her walk up to my building on the security feed, always when she thought I was at doctor's appointments. 12 months of Carol telling me, "You need to confront her." 12 months of Mike Reeves adding evidence to a file that got thicker every week. She has no idea I've been waiting, I thought, watching her perch nervously on the edge of the cream sofa Richard and I had picked out at that estate sale in Cambridge. "You look good," Sophie said, studying my face. I'd regrown my hair, short now, silver instead of the auburn she remembered. My body had been dismantled and reconstructed, but I'd learned to stand differently in it. Stronger, somehow, despite the neuropathy that made my fingers tingle constantly, despite the scars hidden under my cashmere sweater. "You look nervous," I replied, voice even. She laughed, but it died quickly in the silence. Her eyes kept darting to the bedroom, to the kitchen, to the hallway. Looking for what? I wanted to ask. The jewelry you stole? The documents you tried to forge? The mother you left to die alone? "I heard from Aunt Marie," Sophie finally said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "About the life insurance, the policy Dad left you, the $500,000 one." There it was, the number that had haunted me through 10 months of chemotherapy, through nights when I wanted to give up, through Carol holding my hand while I vomited so violently I thought my ribs would crack. $500,000. Not the inheritance from Richard. That was different. Complicated. Tied up in investments and property. No, this was the life insurance. Clean, simple, payable on death. "I know I haven't been there," she continued, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing at the understatement. "But I want to change, and I want to make sure you have proper planning. For your legacy, for your future." Translation. She wanted to make sure she was the beneficiary. That when the cancer came back, and we both knew it would, stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma didn't just disappear, she'd get paid. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. That same feeling I'd had when Dr. Patterson showed me the biopsy results. Clarity. The kind that comes when your body betrays you and teaches you who really matters. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, and watched her shoulders relax slightly. "I'm glad you came. I've actually been hoping we could talk about this." Her eyes lit up. Actual excitement. Like a child on Christmas morning. "Really?" she breathed. "Yes," I replied, standing slowly. "Everything is ready. All the documents, the policies, everything. It's on the tablet." on the kitchen table. Sophie practically leapt up, her nervousness evaporating into something uglier. Greed, yes, but also relief. The relief of someone who'd been drowning and finally saw shore. She grabbed the tablet with trembling hands, and I wondered if she was thinking about Dimitri, about the debt, about the 90-day deadline that had surely come and gone. "There are 3 files," I said softly, moving to stand behind her. "Watch all 3, until the very end. Then we'll talk about your inheritance." She touched the screen, and the first video began to play. I didn't need to watch. I'd memorized every frame, every second, every word. Instead, I watched her face, watched the exact moment she realized what she was seeing, watched her skin go from flushed to pale. But before she could react, before she could speak, I let myself drift back to where this really started. 18 months ago, I sat in Dr. Patterson's office at Mass General, staring at a poster that said, "You're not alone," in cheerful purple letters. The irony wasn't lost on me, even then. "Stage 3, invasive ductal carcinoma," he said, and I remember thinking how clinical the words sounded, how they didn't capture the terror flooding my veins. "Aggressive. We need to start chemotherapy immediately. I'm going to refer you to Dr. Chen for surgical consult." His voice continued, explaining percentages and protocols. But I was underwater, drowning in statistics about 5-year survival rates. Sophie had just told me 2 weeks earlier that she was too busy for our weekly dinners anymore, that she needed space to build her own life. I'd smiled and said I understood, because that's what mothers do. In the hospital parking garage, hands shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone, I called her. She answered on the 4th ring, irritated. "Mom, what now? I'm at brunch with..." Her voice was sharp, impatient, and I could hear laughter in the background, the clink of mimosa glasses. "Sophie, I have cancer," I said, and my voice cracked on the word. "Stage 3. I need you. I'm scared and I don't know." She interrupted me. Actually interrupted me. "Oh my God, Mom, you're so dramatic. Remember when you thought you had pneumonia and it was just a cold? You always think the worst and it's exhausting." I felt something inside me crack. "Sophie, this is real. I have the biopsy results right here. The doctor says we need to start treatment immediately and..." "I can't do this right now," she snapped. "I have plans. I have a life that doesn't revolve around your health anxiety every time you have a headache or a weird mole or whatever. Stop calling me every time you panic about something. Get therapy." The words hit like physical blows. "Please," I whispered. "I just need..." Click. The line went dead. Then 30 seconds later, a text appeared on my screen. "Do not call again. I'm blocking you until you learn boundaries. This is toxic and I won't enable it anymore." I sat in that parking garage for 2 hours, staring at that message, while around me people came and went, heading home to families who would hold them, comfort them, believe them. 2 weeks later, after I'd started chemotherapy, sitting alone in that vinyl chair while poison dripped into my veins, I called my sister Marie. "And have you talked to Sophie?" I asked, desperate for any connection to my daughter. Marie's voice was careful, pitying. "She called me last week. Viv, she's worried about you. She said you've been having episodes since Richard died. Paranoid thoughts. She mentioned you claimed to have cancer but refused to show her any proof. Honey, grief can do strange things to our minds. Maybe you should talk to someone." I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Finally, "Marie, I have stage 3 breast cancer. I can send you the pathology report right now." The silence was deafening. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Sophie lied. She told everyone you were being dramatic, seeking attention." We believed her. The 3rd chemotherapy session nearly broke me. I'd lost most of my hair by then. It came out in clumps in the shower, clogging the drain, until I finally stood there with scissors and cut the rest off myself at 3 a.m., crying so hard I couldn't see. The nausea was constant, violent. That day, I made it to the bathroom just in time before vomiting so hard I saw stars. I ended up on the cold tile floor, too weak to stand, dry heaving into the toilet while my body betrayed me over and over. That's where Carol found me. She didn't say anything, didn't offer platitudes. She just sat on the floor, pulled my head into her lap, and held me while I sobbed. "My daughter blocked me," I finally managed between gasps. My husband is dead. My body is trying to kill me. I don't know if I want to keep fighting." Carol stroked what was left of my hair, and I felt her tears drip onto my scalp. "You fight because they don't get to win," she said fiercely. "Cancer doesn't get to win. And people who abandon you when you're dying don't get to win either." She helped me up, helped me rinse my mouth, helped me back to the infusion chair like I was something precious and breakable. That night, alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. The message said, "I don't know you. I dated your daughter for 2 years. I broke up with her when I found out who she really is. Today she was at your house. You should check if anything is missing. I'm sorry. She made me promise never to tell anyone about her problems. But after she laughed about you finally having a real disease, I can't stay silent anymore. Someone who still has a mother." I read that message 3 times. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, stone steady, because the sadness had crystallized into something else entirely. Rage, the productive kind, the kind that builds rather than destroys. I didn't have security cameras. Richard had always said they felt invasive, paranoid. But I knew someone who could help with that. Carol had given me a business card months ago, pressed into my hand after a particularly brutal treatment. "For situations where you need to protect yourself," she'd said. At the time, I thought she meant medical malpractice. I was wrong. She meant my daughter. I made the call at midnight. A Mike Reeves Investigations. His voice was professional, alert despite the hour. "Mr. Reeves," I said, "I need to know what my daughter is stealing from me. And I need proof." Mike Reeves looked exactly like you'd expect an ex-Boston PD detective to look. Gray stubble, tired eyes that had seen too much, and a directness that felt like relief after months of doctors speaking in careful euphemisms. He sat in my living room 3 days later, studying me over coffee I was too nauseous to drink. "Your daughter," he said carefully. "You're sure about this?" I showed him the message from Sophie's ex-boyfriend, showed him the blocked number, told him about the family she'd turned against me. "I'm sure," I said. "Can you help?" He nodded slowly. "We'll install cameras. Your home, your property, completely legal. If she's entering without permission, we'll document it. If she's taking things, we'll have evidence. But Mrs. Cole, I have to ask, what do you want to do with that evidence?" I met his eyes. "I want to know who my daughter really is. And then I want to decide if she gets to keep being my daughter." Mike worked fast. Within a week, 6 cameras were hidden throughout my apartment, in the living room bookshelf, above the kitchen cabinets, in the hallway, bedroom, even one disguised as a smoke detector. I could watch the feeds from my phone, receive alerts when anyone entered. "The bedroom camera is most important," Mike said. "That's where people look for valuables, documents. If she's planning something, that's where we'll catch it." He paused at my door. "I'm sorry this is happening. I've seen families do terrible things for money, but daughters researching how long their mothers will live. That's a new low, even for me." I didn't ask how he knew about that yet. 3 weeks later, I was at Mass General for my 9th chemotherapy session when my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected. Bedroom. I opened the app with trembling fingers, and there she was, Sophie, letting herself in with a key I didn't know she'd kept, moving through my apartment like she owned it. She went straight to my bedroom, the sacred space where Richard had died in my arms, where I'd spent countless nights crying into his pillow. She opened my jewelry box, the antique one Richard had given me for our 10th anniversary. Her hands moved methodically through the contents. She took her father's wedding ring, the one I'd been saving for her future husband. Took the diamond earrings Richard bought me when Sophie was born. Took the Cartier watch he gave me on our 20th anniversary. And as she slipped them into her purse, she looked around the room and murmured, "Sorry, Mom. Emergency." "Mrs. Cole?" Carol's voice broke through my fugue. I realized I was crying. Phone clutched so hard my knuckles were white. "She's robbing me," I whispered. "Right now, while I'm here getting poisoned to stay alive. She's stealing from me." Carol looked at my phone screen, and her face hardened. "We're documenting this, right?" I nodded. "Good. Now you focus on surviving. Let your investigator handle the rest." But I couldn't focus. All I could think was, she knew I had chemotherapy on Tuesdays. She'd planned this, waited until I'd be too weak and sick to come home early. The calculation of it was breathtaking. That's when I knew. Whatever happened next, the daughter I'd raised was already gone. This was someone else wearing her face. Mike called me that evening. I saw the feed. Got clear footage of everything. But Vivian, I need to tell you what else I found. His voice was grim. I've been investigating her finances like you asked. She has a gambling problem. Online betting, DraftKings, FanDuel, offshore sites. She's $180,000 in debt to a loan shark named Dmitry Volkov. He's Russian mob adjacent, runs a restaurant in East Boston that's a front for money laundering and enforcement. I found emails between them. He paused. Dmitry knows about you, about the cancer, about the life insurance. Sophie told him everything. I felt ice water in my veins. What did she tell him? Mike's voice was barely above a whisper. She told him you had 18 months to live. Asked if he could give her 18 months to pay the debt. He gave her 90 days. Said if you died faster, she'd get an extension. The next revelation came 3 days later, when Mike appeared at my door with a folder I didn't want to open. I need you to sit down for this, he said. Inside were documents that made my stomach turn. Sophie had attempted to forge my signature on bank documents, trying to add herself as a co-account holder. She'd called my insurance company, impersonating me, trying to update beneficiary information. The call was recorded, and you could hear her attempting to mimic my voice. She'd contacted Richard's old attorney, trying to get copies of my will, claiming she was helping her sick mother organize affairs. And then, the worst part, Mike had subpoenaed her laptop's search history through the fraud investigation. The searches, all dated within weeks of my diagnosis. How long does stage 3 breast cancer take to kill? Life insurance payout timeline after death. Can daughter contest life insurance beneficiary? How to prove mother mentally incompetent. And one more, dated 4 months ago. Pillow suffocation looks like natural death. I met with Tyler Brennan on a cold afternoon at a cafe on Tremont Street. He was younger than I'd expected, handsome in a careless way, and his hands shook as he stirred his untouched coffee. I loved her, he said without preamble. For 2 years, I really loved her. I ignored red flags because I thought I could fix her, save her. Then she got the call about your diagnosis. He looked up, eyes haunted. She hung up, turned to me, and opened a bottle of champagne. Actually celebrated. I asked why, and she said, "Finally, the universe is giving me a break. My mom has $800K in investments plus life insurance. I'll finally be able to pay off Dmitry." That's when I knew who I'd really been dating. He started crying silently. I should have told you sooner. I was scared Dmitry would come after me too. I'm so sorry. I reached across the table, took his hand. This boy, this stranger, had more courage than my own daughter. You told me eventually, I said gently. That matters. When I got home that night, Mike was waiting with a flash drive. Everything, he said. Videos, bank records, emails, search history, the fraud attempts, enough for criminal charges, multiple felonies. I held that tiny piece of metal and plastic. It contained the death certificate for my relationship with Sophie. Evidence that the little girl who used to make me Mother's Day cards out of construction paper had become someone who Googled how to suffocate me. Carol had asked me once, during a session where I'd begged her to let me give up, "What keeps you fighting?" I hadn't had an answer then. Now I did. I wasn't fighting to live for Sophie anymore. I was fighting to live despite her. And when she came for her inheritance, I'd be waiting. Back in the present, Sophie stared at the tablet screen, all color draining from her face. The first video showed her clear as day. September 2023, 12:47 p.m. Stealing jewelry from my bedroom. The angle captured everything. Her hands rifling through the box, selecting items that whispered, "Sorry, Mom." Emergency. I watched her watch herself commit theft. "Mom, I can explain," she started, voice strangled. "Watch the rest," I said calmly. She didn't want to. Her finger hovered over the home button, but curiosity, or maybe dread, made her tap the second file. This one wasn't a video. It was a PDF of screenshots, messages between her and Dmitry Volkov. Her words, "My mother has $500K life insurance. She has stage 3 cancer. Doctors gave her 18 months max. Can you give me 18 months to pay? His response, I give you 90 days. She dies faster. You get extension. She lives. You pay in other ways. Her. What other ways? Him. You really want to know? The messages went on. Escalating. Threatening. Sophie made a sound like a wounded animal. Mom, please, you don't understand. Third file, I interrupted. She didn't want to open it. I could see the panic in her eyes, the desperate calculation of how bad this could be. But she opened it anyway. This document was her laptop's search history, complete with dates and timestamps. Every single search, laid out in chronological order. How long different cancer stages took to kill, insurance payout procedures, legal questions about contesting wills, and there, dated 4 months ago, impossible to misinterpret. Pillow suffocation looks like natural death. Sophie dropped the tablet, literally dropped it onto the couch. Then she ran, sprinted, to my bathroom. I heard her vomiting. When she came back, her face was gray, mascara running. I never would have actually. I was desperate, she gasped. Desperate, I repeated. The word hung in the air. You were desperate, so you researched how to murder me. No, Dmitri was going to... She was hyperventilating now. He was going to kill me, Mom, or worse. He showed me pictures of what they do to people who don't pay. I owed $180,000. I didn't have a choice. I stood up slowly. Every inch of me controlled fury. You had a choice, I said softly. You could have come to me, told me the truth, asked for help. But you didn't, because you didn't see me as your mother anymore. You saw me as an ATM machine with an expiration date. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. You don't understand what it's like. You were always perfect. Perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect everything. Dad loved you more than he ever loved me. When he died, you got everything. I got nothing but... Your father would want you to be strong. The decades of resentment came pouring out. Every childhood slight. Every moment she'd felt second to my grief. Every time I'd been so busy mourning Richard, I hadn't seen her drowning too. So you decided to wait for me to die? I asked, and my voice finally broke. Is that what this is? Revenge for not being loved enough. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she screamed. The gambling started small, just fantasy football. Then I couldn't stop. I lost more and more, and then Dmitri found me, and he said he'd give me time, but then he didn't, and I had 90 days, and you were dying anyway, and... She stopped, realizing what she'd said. I was dying anyway, I repeated. A knock at the door, hard, authoritative. I walked over, looked through the peephole, and felt something settle in my chest. I opened it. Dmitri Volkov stood there, 6'4" of solid muscle, a scar running through his left eyebrow, 2 men flanking him. His eyes found Sophie immediately. Sophie, he said, Russian accent thick. You have something for me. Sophie went rigid with terror. Dmitri's gaze moved to me, and I saw the calculation, the assessment. Ah, the mother, not dead yet. This is problem for Sophie, yes. Mr. Volkov, I said, and my voice was steady. Please, come in, let's discuss business. His eyebrows rose slightly. Surprise, maybe respect. But he stepped inside. His men stayed in the hall. I gestured to the chair across from Sophie. He sat, relaxed, like he had all the time in the world. You have interesting apartment, he observed. Beacon Hill, expensive. Your daughter says you are rich woman. Comfortable, I corrected. And getting more comfortable daily, since I'm not dying as quickly as some people hoped. I sat down, folded my hands. Here's the situation. Sophie stole $20,000 worth of jewelry from me. She committed wire fraud attempting to access my bank accounts. She impersonated me to my insurance company. These are federal crimes. 5 to 10 years in prison. Dmitri listened, nodding slowly. And if she goes to prison, you get nothing. She can't pay you from a cell. I let that sink in. Or, I drop the charges. She gets probation, mandatory addiction counseling. She works, legitimate work, and pays you $2,000 per month for the next 5 years. $120,000 total. You lose $60,000, but you get paid. Guaranteed. Every month. Dimitri studied me for a long moment. And if she runs, then I release all evidence to the FBI. She goes to federal prison. You get nothing. Sophie was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Dimitri smiled, a cold, calculating smile. You are better negotiator than daughter. This I respect. Deal. Sophie, you work for me now. My restaurant. Dishwasher. $15 per hour. Every penny goes to debt. You miss one payment. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. He stood, massive and terrifying, and looked down at Sophie. You start tomorrow. 6 a.m. Then he walked out, and the apartment felt like I could breathe again. Sophie sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Mom, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was scared and desperate and stupid and... I know, I said. And I did. I knew fear, desperation, the feeling of being trapped. Cancer had taught me that. Can you ever forgive me? She asked, and her voice was so small, so much like the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I looked at her for a long time. Finally, forgiveness isn't something you ask for, Sophie. It's something you earn. And the woman you tried to kill, the one who would have forgiven you anything, she died. Not from cancer. From you. Maybe in 5 years, when you've learned what consequences mean, come back. We'll see who I am by then, and who you've become. She left. The door closed, and I started shaking. Carol emerged from my bedroom where she'd been waiting, just in case, and caught me before I fell. I cried in her arms for an hour, not for what I'd lost, for what I'd never really had. 8 months later, I sat in Dr. Patterson's office again. The familiar dread, the 2 bright lights, the chair that never got comfortable no matter how many times I sat in it. The scans show new activity, he said gently. Small mass, other breast. We caught it early. But Vivian, this is your reality now. Surveillance, biopsies, treatment cycles. Fear every 3 months when you come in for imaging. I looked at my hands. The neuropathy made them tingle constantly now. A permanent reminder that my body had turned traitor. How long? I asked. With treatment? Years, maybe decades. But it will always be there. That shadow. I thought about Sophie, about cancer, about the 2 diseases that had tried to kill me. At least shadows mean there's still light, I said. Dr. Patterson smiled sadly. That's one way to see it. 3 days a week now, I volunteer at the Mass General Cancer Center. Today I sat with Maya, 28 years old, stage 2, no family in Boston, terrified and alone. I held her hand during her first chemotherapy infusion, felt her fingers grip mine as the IV went in. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, I said. You should be. This is terrifying. Your body is going to feel like it's betraying you. You'll lose hair, dignity, certainty. But Maya, look at me. She did. You're not alone. I'm here. I'll be here next time. And the time after that. And when you're too sick to believe you'll survive, I'll believe it for you. Until you can believe it again. She cried. I held her. And I thought about Sophie. About the mother I used to be who would have done this for her daughter. Would have held her through anything. Carol showed me a newspaper article over coffee after my shift. Sophie had completed an intensive gambling addiction program, worked her way up from dishwasher to manager at Dimitri's restaurant. It had become legitimate, surprisingly, specializing in Eastern European cuisine. She'd paid off $85,000 of her debt in 8 months through brutal 70-hour weeks. She sent you a letter, Carol said carefully. Didn't open it. Left it on your counter. I stared at my cappuccino. I'm not ready. Will you ever be? Carol asked, not unkindly. I don't know, I admitted. She researched how to suffocate me. How do you come back from that? How do you look at your daughter and not see a potential murderer? Carol squeezed my hand. You don't. You see who she's becoming, not who she was. Maybe someday, but not today. That afternoon, I signed documents in Diane Rothman's office. My attorney looked at me over her glasses. You're sure about this? The entire life insurance policy? All $500,000, I confirmed. Beneficiary, Mass General Cancer Family Support Fund. specifically designated for patients without family present during treatment. Diane made notes. You know, you could leave something for Sophie, a small amount. Show you're open to reconciliation. I thought about it, really considered it. I am leaving her something, I said finally. The most valuable thing I can give her. Consequences. And the possibility, not the guarantee, but the possibility of redemption. That's worth more than $500,000. Diane smiled. You know, in 20 years of estate law, that might be the sanest thing I've ever heard. I smiled back. Cancer either makes you bitter or makes you wise. I chose wise. That evening, Carol and I walked along the Charles River, watching crews practice in the fading light. You've changed, she said. A year ago, you defined yourself entirely as Sophie's mother. Now you're just Vivian. And Vivian is pretty incredible. I thought about that, about the woman who'd sat in Dr. Patterson's office 18 months ago, terrified and alone, whose entire identity was wrapped up in being someone's wife, someone's mother. That woman was gone. I spent 24 years trying to be the perfect mother, I said slowly. So perfect that I never taught Sophie about consequences, about accountability. I fixed everything for her, covered every mistake, and I created a daughter who researched how to kill me. My voice didn't break anymore when I said it. It was just fact. Then I spent 18 months learning to be an imperfect human, and I found a family of hundreds. The Mayas, the Juans, everyone fighting alone. Turns out I'm a much better mother to strangers than I ever was to my own daughter. Late that night, alone in my apartment, I found Sophie's letter on the kitchen counter where Carol had left it. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve a response. But you should know. I've been sober from gambling for 8 months. I've paid Dimitri $85,000. I'm in therapy 4 times a week. I think about what I did every single day. Every single day. Tyler told me the cancer came back. I wanted to call, to visit, but I know I haven't earned that right. Maybe I never will. You taught me everything about love, how to receive it anyway. It took losing you to learn about consequence, about earning things instead of expecting them. Sorry isn't enough. So I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for one thing. Let me try to become someone worthy of being your daughter again, even if it takes the rest of my life, even if you never see it. I love you. I always did. I just loved myself more. That's changing. Sophie. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a drawer, not the trash, but not where I'd see it every day either. Carol called an hour later. Well, did you read it? I did. And I looked at my reflection in the dark window. A woman with short silver hair, with scars hidden and visible, with cancer cells that might kill her or might not, with a daughter who'd Googled how to suffocate her. I'll respond, I said, in 5 years. If she's still sober, still working, still trying. That's harsh, Carol said softly. I thought about harsh, about sitting in chemotherapy alone while your daughter steals from you, about being so sick you want to die while your child researches how long it will take. 5 years isn't harsh, I said. It's mercy. And if Sophie truly wants to be my daughter again, she'll understand something I should have taught her 24 years ago. Love isn't inherited. It's not guaranteed. It's built. One action at a time. One consequence accepted at a time. One day of choosing to be better. I hung up and walked to my bathroom. Tomorrow, I'd hold Maya's hand through her second treatment. I'd sit with Juan through his radiation. I'd be a mother to 100 people who needed one. And maybe, in 5 years, I'd have room in my heart for one more. But tonight, looking in the mirror at a survivor, scarred, bald in places, broken and rebuilt, I realized something. I wasn't alone anymore. I had hundreds of daughters now. The ones who fight. The ones who survive. The ones who know that love isn't something you inherit from blood. It's something you earn, one held hand at a time. What a story, right? Leave a comment below. Would you have done the same as Vivian? Would you have given Sophie a second chance? We love reading your opinions. And if you enjoyed this story and want more content like this, subscribe to the channel now. It's quick, it's free, and you'll be sure not to miss any new stories. Oh, and the next video is already waiting for you on the screen. Click on it, and I'll see you there. Thanks.